So what we've actually gone through and done is actually add this other tag called overlay. If that's set to these values, it effectively means from a customer point of view, you can build your own configuration files, something like network configuration, I can't remember, we made a whole bunch of changes to allow this. You can say, I can build my own configuration file that's site-specific, install it, and it'll just overlay those particular files that we allow you to overlay. Allowed allows you to overlay them. True allows it to be overlaid, but you have to have the preserve set to actually say, actually you're going to overlay it, but what you are overlaying gets to be preserved in some magical form.
So you have to set that in the original package.
Yes.
So basically you would have to set that for every single configuration file that a customer may wish to.
Exactly, and that's we actually went through that. So we went through, I can't remember who the customer was, but they said, well, on Solaris 10 we have our own custom deliverable package. So we went and took that, said, okay, we need to do that for all these files, and then we've extended to a whole bunch of them. So we do have that set in a lot of configuration files. So if you find you've got some configuration files that you want to deliver and you're not happy with the way we do it, log a call, support call, and say, look, I think this one should have the overlay attribute, and then we'll take it and fix it. Because all we need to do is just republish the package with that overlay, and you're done. Okay, so we have directories, files, links. So we have hard links, soft links. Link, we basically say what the binary is and where the target is. So in this particular case, we have the link path, which is EC time zone, and actually the real target is default init. Very simple, the same with hard links. Hard links are exactly the same, except it says hard link at the beginning, so I'm not going to give an example of that. So one of the other interesting things about links are, I'll give an example here of Java, is that you might have multiple versions of an application installed. So for example, in Solaris we have Java 7 and Java 6. Which one do you want to be as default, i.e. you'll use a bin Java? So you can manually go in and do RM to the Java link and set it to whichever one you want. Or we have a thing called mediated links. Did I do that? There we go. So mediated link allows you to configure the version of the software you want to have as default on your system via the packaging operations. And that's essentially just resetting the target of the soft link. So in this particular case, I've got an example here. This is actually from a Solaris 11.1 system. We deliver Java 7 and Java 6, I said, and we want to switch the user Java to point to whichever one we want, and we have a mediator. So if we want to use Java 1.6, we just tell the mediator we want to use Java 1.6. Again, I'll show you an example of this. How we do that. In fact, I'll show you an example later, actually. If I try and break the flow of the talk, I'll mess the laptop up. So we can also have implementation. So we can have vendor, i.e. Oracle, say, we prefer it to be this. But then you have site, i.e. you guys can say, actually, we want this. And this, if you use the site thing, it's in preference to the vendor thing. So you can actually configure your own packages to actually say, actually, I want the mediators for my site to have this value here, and then it will just use whatever you want it to be. The default value used is the higher number. We always want to use the latest, so 1.7 in this case. There's also a mediator implementation, so if you say, actually, I don't know about versions, but you might have some non-numeric version string, you can put in an implementation value and say Java 7 as opposed to 1.7, and then the mediator, you'd have to tell it which mediator implementation to use. I'm not too sure on the details on that one. We don't actually use that, we use the mediator versions. Okay, so we've done directories, files, links. You'll add users to your system, so we have user attribute. Again, user action, sorry. This one just says, create me a username called netadmin, UID of 16, part of the netadmin group. It's GCOS field, comment, and then whether it's an FTP user. There are a whole bunch of other attributes you can add to this. I've not bothered documenting them, but there's home directory, shell, password aging stuff. I thought you could easily read a man page as opposed to me standing up here and telling you about that. You just know they're there. Then we have a group action, again, netadmin and GID. They're very simple. Any questions on that? So we've gone over the standard delivery actions. Yeah? Okay. So we have a package life cycle. So I alluded to this earlier. So we create a package, we can refactor a package saying, oh, we got our creation wrong, we actually want to break it up into smaller packages. And that's something we're doing within Solaris itself anyway. We want to rename a package saying, actually, we had some WCS, and we want to call that system core library and system kernel, so we can break it up. Then also we want to delete a package, say that package has reached its end of life, there's no point it being on the system anymore, just get rid of it. So, refactoring. So, we all know on the Solaris 10 we have some WCSU, some WCSR. Any idea what those mean? Anybody know what some WCSR means?
Encrypted software or something?
Core system root. Okay.
System up.
And then there's some WCSU, core system user. So what we did with the Solaris 11 is refactor that to make it a little bit more sensible. So we have system/core OS with core utilities and core kernel. So we broke that package up. It's just a massive wad of stuff into lots of smaller packages. And one of the good things about breaking it up into smaller packages, it lends itself to a system minimization. To actually say, yeah, I'm interested in these bunch of drivers and these bits of things, but actually I'm not interested in that, so get rid of that. One of the things you want to get rid of that stuff for is less maintenance on your system, so you don't have to apply security patches to it. So you actually say, we want to get down to a very small system. By refactoring the packages, it allows you to do that. When you do break up a package, you want to make sure there are correct dependency lines on there. So if somebody does have this big wad of packages installed, when they migrate up to where you've refactored it, they've still got to get all their software in. So you've got to actually have the correct dependency lines in there to allow them to pull in all the packages. The other one, next one, is you might have just got the name wrong. Yeah, we've done that. We actually got the name wrong quite a few times, actually. So what we do, we create a package and say, actually, when you come across this package, it's now renamed to this one. So when you do an upgrade, move this package and it'll be renamed to this. And effectively, what we have here. So we have from some WCS, we renamed it, it's true, and it's renamed to Core OS. So if you have some WCS on your system, on an upgrade, it just gets renamed to Core OS. And we use that trick later. I'll show you an example of this. Deletion of package. So as time goes on, software gets old. So for example, driver hardware goes away. We had one in Solaris 11.1, there's a driver called the Tabor driver, which was for an IB interface. We no longer shipped any platforms that had it or supported under 11.1, so that software may as well just go. No point having it installed on your system. So, what we want to do is, anybody who's got it installed, it's just software sitting there adding to rot on the system, so we want to get rid of it. So what we do is in the system, we mark it and say, this package is now obsolete. So on upgrade, on install of the system, packaging client goes, I've got these bunch of packages here, how many of them renamed? Okay, those bunch are renamed to there. Oh look, all these bunch here, they're obsolete. You don't need them on the system, so I'll just remove them and just gets rid of them. So it tidies your system up. Okay, so going on to dependencies. So IPS offers a rich set of dependencies on your system. So this is where we have packages dependent on other packages and the relationships between those. So the dependency represents inter-package dependencies. Oh, I've said there, reading that out. Why would you want a package to be dependent on another package? Because it delivers functionality that you need. Example on that would be something that requires SSL. Say an Apache server thing might require SSL, so it would be dependent on the SSL package. You might have plugins, so you might have some, a good example that would be the Devis ADM plugins for configuring your underlying hardware. So it will have optional dependencies on these plugins if you've got the hardware available. So that's a very simple dependency. So we have other types of dependencies. So you want to say, actually, I am dependent on that package, and I need to be dependent on it at a minimum level. Or also, you might want to say, I need to be dependent on it at a maximum level. So you need to say, only this version will work for me. The other one might be saying, actually, I can only install this package if another package is present, or cannot install in present. So an example of this would be, we had with Solaris 10 at some point in the past, whereby if you had EMC PowerPath installed, then you installed the latest kernel Jumbo, your S10 machine would panic, which was because there was a change in the way the Devs ADM worked, or Devs S framework, and EMC were doing something that they shouldn't be quite doing. But that was just communication between the companies. But it meant, from a customer point of view, you're sitting there with your big machine, with your EMC PowerPath, talking to your big data center, you put your patch on, machine panics, you take an outage for your weekend. That's not really acceptable. So what we can do is you need to put in exclude dependencies. So you want to say, actually, if you want to install this package, we know from an Oracle perspective there's a problem if you install it on something that's got this other thing on, so it just won't install. Again, if another one is sort of an optional one, if a package is installed, it needs to be at a particular version. So there's a whole bunch of dependencies. I'll go through each of those and bore you endlessly with these. And obviously, a dependency is specified by this depend action. So, moving on to the simplest one that we have is the require dependency. What it says is, if I'm installing this package, I require this package at the minimum version. So, in this one I've got, I can't remember which package I looked at here, but this one says, when I'm installing this package, I need to install system library at this version, and it's a require. Also, Python 2.6 at this version. Okay? What is interesting here, it also says, also need the OSNet incorporation, but it's got no version associated with it. So we can also have version-less dependencies. And I'll just give you a little talk about that later. But essentially, all I'm saying here is, whilst you specify your versions down to the whole string, you don't actually need to. You specify the version you want. So if you are dependent on something in Solaris 11 Update 1, you might just want to specify the version up to that string and just ditch the rest of that. Anyway, that's the require. Following on to the require, there's the require any. What this one says is, well actually, when I'm installing this package, I require any one of the following packages to be installed. And yeah, so one of them must be at the mentioned, the minimum version mentioned. So in this particular case here, this package I had says, it obviously relies on Python, must be some Python scripts. It actually says, I don't care which version of Python, but it's got to be one of them. So as long as you've got a Python interpreter, I'm happy. So require any. What is interesting about this is when you come to install this package that depends on this, it'll just pick one of those and install one of those. It'll pick the first one on the line. And interestingly, if you then say, actually, I've got my system, if you then remove that one, it'll remove that one and then it'll install that one for you. So it's maintain, the whole aspect there is to maintain the consistency of your system. And what I should have said in the previous slide is if you tried to remove a package that had a required dependency on it, it would violate the package. So in this case, if I tried to remove system library, that would throw up an error saying, cannot remove this because the package that defined this required dependency requires it. Okay. Exclude. So this one I just mentioned earlier, sort of, if you says, I cannot install this package if this other package is installed on your system. So, as I mentioned here, if you know that if you're installing this package on this system and you know that this other one is on there, and you know it will fail, then you don't want to deinstall. So one of the things we did, we used this for our engineered systems. So our engineered systems, initially when they came out, they're engineered and they're all supposed to work with Solaris 11. Okay? So we then, in the support repository, put and on the release repository, put 11.1. So what we didn't want to do, customers doing with these engineered systems, doing a PKG update, and suddenly find they're on 11.1, because 11.1 wasn't qualified for them at that time. So what we did, we actually put an exclude dependency in the 11.1 on release that says, if you are an engineered system, Exadata in this case, we knew it had that package installed, then can't install. Okay? But we also put a get out clause, a facet. I'll talk about facets later. But if they really, really did want to go to 11.1, they just turn the facet to false, and it would allow them to install. So it's just a little